Due to the nature of the content of this documentary, viewer discretion is advised.
What's that, Daddy? What's that purple building, Daddy?
A cursory click through the channels of any cable provider will support the claim that ours is a culture which revolves around sex. It permeates all forms of media, from billboards to cartoons. Even the news invokes arousing imagery to solicit viewers. It is a virtually inescapable phenomenon, and its effects can be seen throughout all strata of society. The last century saw an explosion in our level of sexual freedom, but it also bore witness to the new depths of which we found ourselves capable.
You watch some of the history of film, and you get the sense that if people could have done it, they'd have had strip acts in films in the 20s and 30s. They'd have had people copulating on stage in the films of the 20s and 30s had they been able to get away with it. But there were two restraints. One was the law. The other was largely a consensus in the religious community, Catholic, Protestant, and Jewish. And both of those restraints, to some extent, were done away by the Supreme Court. You know, when the Supreme Court declared war on religion, beginning in the 40s, and in the 50s, it declared war on morality.
We're in a society that says, if it feels good, do it. You know, do your own thing, be yourself, do what makes you happy. And what happens is we've developed into a society that's very narcissistic and very hedonistic, that says that I'm entitled to whatever pleasure that I want to have, and our society's come to accept it. But what they don't realize is the long-term effects of that.
The number one reason why we have so much pornography in America today is the United States Supreme Court. Certainly wasn't our nation's founding fathers, and having grown up in the 50s and 60s when the change happened, was the average American saying, I want to hear more four-letter words in these sitcoms we're watching. I want to hear Lucy say the F word. I mean, undoubtedly there were folks in the entertainment media who wanted Lucy to say the F word, but 98% of the rest of America, the last thing they wanted to hear was somebody say the F word in a sitcom. Top-down change, in large measure instigated by or made possible by court decisions, removing the restraints from those who didn't recognize restraint. So that, again, once the restraints were taken away from the people in our popular culture, they dictated what we would watch.
The Supreme Court has so expanded the First Amendment and to what is protected speech that they have over the last 20 to 30 years said that sexual dance has a measure of protection under the First Amendment. They can't name one founding father who thought so. But there's a lot of justices on the Supreme Court over time who have ruled in such a way that they can extend those rulings to almost anything.
There's certainly a disconnect in terms of the values of our nation's cultural elite, whether in the news media, the entertainment media, versus the average American. Little by little, those differences are fading as more and more Americans buy into the culture of our elite. I think that film should be protected by the First Amendment, but basically the court did away with any distinctions between just vulgar crude, without a point entertainment versus legitimate debate, and gave the entertainment the same value under the First Amendment as debate and discussion about important issues of our day had, which was not the intention of the First Amendment.
If you look at what's happened to our country since the internet came into its own, which was coincidentally at the time Bill Clinton became president, Clinton's administration stopped prosecuting pornography, and then pornography boomed in our country. Internet pornography boomed. What's the consequence of pornography? People then want sex acts. Where do you go for sex acts? You go to strip clubs and to prostitutes. So we've seen, since that time, a boom in strip clubs coming into the United States across the country, and we've seen a boom of internet pornography in porn shops.
We have many groups who are outspoken that they think words are more important than sexual violence against women and children, who will try to protect and say that America's First Amendment protects pornography. The Supreme Court has already decided that obscenity is not covered by the First Amendment, but we'll have many people who will defend it, who will say that it's okay. When we started piping pornography into our homes in ways that were available 24/7 on the internet, ways that children knew how to get to better than parents knew how to get to, when it's free, might as well put a cocaine pipeline into our houses. And so the internet has really been a toxic force in terms of the use of pornography into our homes.
It's become such a part of our culture that it's almost as if we don't see it, we don't realize it, we don't recognize that it's there, but yet it does have an impact on our lives. It has a tremendous impact on that. And for instance, how the way men view women, or how the way women feel that they should appear to men. Women feel that in order to be beautiful, to be attractive to men, they have to look like these women in the lingerie ads or in the pornography or wherever. And this creates things such as eating disorders, image disorders. You know, when you look at the number of women out there who are getting plastic surgery, they feel that they have to look this way. And why? Because this is what they see in the media. This is what they see in the ads, in the soft porn, even in the hardcore porn. So it affects our society in that way. We become so desensitized to it that when we see things, we're not shocked by it anymore. And that's pretty sad, because after a while, you know, we're not shocked by the lingerie ads, we're not shocked by the swimsuit ads, we're not shocked by the soft porn. Pretty soon we're not going to even be shocked by the hardcore porn.
The desensitization that plagues our society also infects most every home in America on an individual level. For many, we are first exposed to pornographic materials at an early age. It is the beginning of a long process that slowly eats away at our innocence. And by the time we reach high school, we are often well on our way to an insurmountable addiction.
The revenue of the pornography industry is greater than ABC, NBC, CBS all combined together. This is a $99 billion worldwide industry, and it's just, you know, affecting every aspect of our culture. You know, and our children are growing up in this culture that presents them with pornography from a very young age. And the average boy sees his first pornographic image sometime between the age of 7 and 11.
The truth is that more and more, particularly young boys, are getting hooked on pornography in grade school and early high school. And by the time they're in their mid-late 20s, if they haven't stopped it, my God, they've got an addiction problem.
What's natural about it is a young boy is discovering, like, you know, that he's attracted to the female body, and there's something about this female body that's very good, and the dignity of it, but it's clearly the counterfeit was being presented to me. You know, I remember going to school and like going into the bathroom and like swapping magazines with my friends. It was like this like bonding thing.
Boys are innocent, they have a natural inclination, a natural sex drive, which is very good, but it quickly becomes distorted from an early age because they're being bombarded with images and videos that teach them sex is about using girls for their pleasure, and that's it.
I remember being at my friend's house, and we're having like a sleepover, and we set the alarm for 4 o'clock because like this show was coming on HBO that was, you know, for after hours, and it just, again, it was exciting because you're just a little boy and you don't understand, and you just don't know what all these feelings are and that you're dealing with. And then when you have the older brothers kind of validating it, you know, indirectly, you're like, well, this is just part of growing up.
The link between sex and love is completely destroyed, and boys, by the time they're 18, so many boys are already addicted to pornography. It wasn't like a choice that they went through to say, oh, I would like to become addicted to pornography. Maybe no one ever even explained to them, how destructive this could possibly be in their lives.
I heard it once that pornography is the temptation of the lonely. And as I was entering into my teen years and being a late bloomer, very much focused on sports, not really socially connecting with girls or whatever. So when you have this isolation at a very young age where your friends are going out, they're going to dances and you're not, and you're thinking, was there something wrong with me? Yeah, then the darkness comes in. Then you find yourself, you're locking yourself in bathrooms so that I can have my own private experience, whether it's with the JCPenney catalog or all these things that you just, very innocent, like, wow, you just stumble across things and your mind starts to run wild. And this is really how it begins for a lot of young men.
After graduating high school and going to college, I certainly developed many vices in many areas, which a lot of college students do, including viewing pornography. And about this same time, the internet was just sort of coming on the scene. It was about in the early 90s. So quickly I went from looking at magazines to looking at internet pornography. It's just what most men did, most college men do and continue to do. And so I developed this attachment to pornography and viewing it all the time. And it really, rather than leading to any kind of long-term happiness, it led just to the opposite, which is despair.
What we found in our study with college-aged men is that there is a very significant relationship between going to strip clubs and engaging in non-consensual sex, that those two things are related, that those individuals who use a great deal of pornography are more likely to go to strip clubs and more likely to engage in non-consensual sex in the male student population that we questioned.
I think adults pass these messages on to teenagers, their students, teachers in school, public schools, health teachers. How many health teachers out there today have really messed up teenagers with regard to sexual purity? But let's see what the purpose of the body is. Why did God create us this way? Why did He give us these desires? Why did He meant to channel it in a negative way so that we could lust? What did Jesus say? If you look at a woman with lust, you commit adultery with her in your heart. No. So why did Christ say those things? There's a higher purpose to our bodies, our sexuality. It's your personhood, what makes you male. These feelings, these desires is going to lead you to your future spouse. How many public school teachers are going to say that to their students?
The seeds that are sown in childhood take root in adolescence and are cultivated in early adulthood. The fruit they bear is always rotten, poisonous to the body, to the soul, and to our relationships with others.
There are a lot of lonely men and women out there, and they're searching for something. They haven't found the right, woman, the right man or whatever, and they're just so lonely. And of course, going on to the internet, it's a weak substitute for a relationship.
If you look at the analogy with food, food was meant to feed us, nurture us, bring us health, but we've become a nation of junk food addicts who go to McDonald's and eat junk food, fast food. Sexuality on the internet is full of junk food. It's sending a message which is really toxic, and we've consumed it in mass quantities in a fast, free kind of way. So if you saw the movie Super Size Me, you see what happens to somebody who eats this junk food for 30 days. Somebody who looks at pornography and has a constant diet of it shows the same kind of diminishment of their quality of life.
Until our society views pornography as an addictive substance similar to drugs and alcohol, and until our society starts educating people about the dangers, the addictive danger of pornography, I believe that pornography addiction is only going to get worse. And we're going to see more people addicted to it. We're going to see more cases of sexually transmitted diseases. We're going to see more marriages and families torn apart by it.
Pornography is an out of control and unregulated industry that is so harmful on so many levels. I mean, I've seen estimates of anywhere between 1 in 4 to 7 in 10 men are using pornography on a regular basis. I know for a fact that the pornography industry is a $100 billion plus industry worldwide. That's more than all professional sports and all the revenue they generate added up together.
The pornography industry and those who are in it typically for two reasons. One is greed. I can feed off of the psychological vulnerabilities of others and I can make money. And so my greed is good, and as long as I'm getting something from it, that's a good thing. And secondly, those people who are controlled by their own lust. They are wishful thinkers, in the nicest way to put it, that they wish that they could indulge their lust without any controls on it and have that be a good thing.
Most pornographers today are hardcore pornographers. The United States Supreme Court has interpreted the Constitution to say essentially hardcore pornography can be found to be illegal, softcore cannot. When a man sits on the computer and looks at pornography, makes that decision to do that, he doesn't stay with softcore pornography. He quickly moves to harder core pornography, and he goes down a road of deviance. Some men find that they like child pornography exclusively, and that's why you've seen this boom in child pornography. It's not that we have so many more pedophiles today than we have had in the past. It's that we're creating a desire for child pornography on the internet, because men will go there, they'll look at pornography, and pretty soon that's the only thing that satisfies them.
I'm a psychotherapist, which means I treat psychological problems. I'm a cognitive therapist, which means we look at the beliefs that you have, how the beliefs you have affect your behavior and your emotions, and if you have beliefs that are not true, dysfunctional, hurtful, unhelpful, that they actually affect your psychological health. I'd been working with victims about 10 years when it finally occurred to me that I had not treated one case of sexual violence that didn't involve pornography. We have beliefs that say what I'm doing is normal, natural, everybody's doing it, it doesn't hurt anybody, and those give us permission to engage in the behaviors that we do, and we don't need to change anything because they're normal. And then I started working with the perpetrators, and I heard the beliefs that they had about sexuality, about women, and I realized that the pornography was teaching them this set of beliefs. And the main belief that I heard from the perpetrators was that women's bodies are sexual meat to be consumed for male entertainment.
For single men, it's so important for them to really develop a healthy image of women while they're single. And to do this, they need to avoid the pornography. Because when you look at the women in the pornography and you compare them to real women out in real life, you realize that the women in the pornography really don't exist. Thanks to massive amounts of plastic surgery, makeup, and digital imaging, they don't exist. And what happens is when a man looks at these women and he becomes aroused by these women, he feels, well, this is what women should look like. In order to be attracted to a woman, they have to look like this. And then he goes out into the real world and he sees what real women look like. That real women are not a size 2, they're a size 12. And it's a great disappointment to them. And it affects the way that they relate to women, and they're very disappointed with the women they meet. And this can affect them in their future, even getting married, even being able to have a healthy relationship.
The women who approach relationships saying, I'll never date a man who's looked at pornography or looks at pornography or is currently struggling with it, it's really unfair, because it's not his fault. It is his fault when he gives himself freely over to it, but when he's in a culture that he's bombarded, 15,000 messages our teenagers are given every year about sex outside of marriage. These men are really duped and they're really coerced into this. For a man that's really, has all his magazines and videos and all these things and he's just freely given himself over to it, then yeah, stay clear from that man. But for the man that has the struggle, that's a common scenario for a man today.
Without exception, pornography proves ruinous to the single man. But for the married man, for the father, this devastation is multiplied by the number of people whose lives it impacts. Pornography tears a path of blind destruction through the family, laying waste to marriages and scarring children indelibly.
Looking at pornography changes from when a man is single to when a man is married. For the single man out there, he doesn't see anything wrong with it. He sees it as a recreational activity. It's just a little fun, not hurting anybody, it's okay. But then when a man gets married, things change. First of all, he has his wife, and he has to realize how looking at that pornography is going to affect him in the way he views his wife. And then when he has children, he all of a sudden realizes the responsibility he has to raise those children and to protect those children. And that's in most men out there. Unfortunately, there are still a lot of men out there who don't see anything wrong with it. And even after they are married, they continue to look at pornography and see nothing wrong with it. And they don't realize the damage that they're causing to, first of all, their wives and their relationship, and their marital relationship, and then to their children, the example they're setting.
They have more relationship damage. They go online, they click, click, click till they can find the perfect image, but real women aren't so clickable. You can't just change them, so their real relationships aren't going well. They masturbate to orgasm on the internet, and the goal is to see how fast you can get there. Well, the fast orgasm is not really helpful to real relationships. They no longer care what the partner wants or needs. On the internet, you don't have to care. You're using her like a sexual spittoon, so you're just masturbating in her body, so you don't really have to care what she feels or what she wants. That's not good for relationships.
For the wives, they will often view their husbands looking at pornography as serious as them having an extramarital affair. All right. The women, they feel rejected by that. They feel that they're unattractive, because these women, they see what's on the computer screen, and these wives think, well, how can I compete with that?
Pornography is a cause of a breakup in about half the marriages, not the cause all the time, but one of them, as marriage counselors say, because men no longer care for their wives, they care for pornography. It becomes dominant in their lives, and then they act out. They go visit prostitutes, they go visit strip clubs. So you get men in your community involved with prostitutes, bringing AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases into the community, to their homes, to their wives.
I had one man came into my office struggling with pornography addiction. He had been going to these pornography shops and engaging in anonymous sex. Well, his wife never found out about this until she went for her annual gynecological visit, and her doctor told her that she had a sexually transmitted disease, and she had gotten it from him. Usually what you'll find is in the back of the store, they'll have little booths, video viewing booths, where a man can go in and put $1 in the machine and view videos. But what happens is that there's also a lot of sex that goes on here. Not women going back there, but other men. You will have homosexual men going back there, performing sexual acts on the men that they're. And a lot of the men that go in there to receive these sexual acts, most of them are not gay. They're not homosexual. But it's just some way of finding some type of sexual relief.
The pornography and all those things, it's all about what feels good to me. It's all about my pleasure. And so when you take that approach to marriage, you take that approach to dating, it's a very selfish approach to relationship. It's all about you.
We also have to look at the role that wives or spouses can play in creating and perpetuating an addiction. For example, you may have a husband who's married and has children, but himself is very lonely. Let's say he has a wife who's just very cold, very distant, very critical of him, always putting him down, never satisfied with anything. That really wears a man down, and he gets very lonely, he gets very frustrated, he gets very angry. And going to the porn shop is that temporary relief that he gets from the stresses at home. So when I'm working with a couple in therapy where there is the husband using pornography, I not only address how the husband's use is affecting the marriage, but I also talk about the marital relationship and what role, if possible, his wife can be playing in him going to look at the pornography.
A man that doesn't feel admired in a relationship, doesn't feel like he's providing all his wife's needs, is going to go to someone, or will fall into a situation rather, where they are respected and admired and treated with, like, wow, I'm really glad to see you. And these women who are at these places will do these to these men. They'll make them feel like a man. I've had that experience where the people who work there will manipulate you to get your money, and will tell you things to bring you back, to get you to come back. And who wouldn't? If I'm a man and I'm in a relationship where my wife is, I come home and she's all over me the moment I walk in the door, and she just won't give me any respect, or won't appreciate what I'm doing for the family. I can see why a guy would escape to that, because he wants to be respected, he wants to be appreciated, and I don't blame him. He's guilty, yes, but there's a cooperation that has to happen there, and if the man's going to heal, his spouse has to be a part of that healing.
This is really an opportunity for deeper communication between the husband and wife, where You know, I like to create an atmosphere where a husband can finally tell his wife how lonely he's been, or how her insults, her criticalness have really affected him, and how they have hurt him. And the wives have to be aware of that. And yeah, they don't want to hear it, and it's very painful for them to hear that. And often they don't want to hear it, but they need to hear it, and they need to realize that both spouses need to take ownership of the problem, because it is a marital problem.
A woman has to look at herself, you know, and am I contributing to my husband's addiction? If she's rejecting him, she may push him further into the problem. But there's a lot of men that are going there because they want to escape. They want to escape their reality.
Men seeking refuge in pornography invariably find a master far less forgiving, far more brutal than those from whom they seek to escape. It holds a suffocating grip on its victims, and for many, this grip only worsens with time. It is a grim destiny at best, but not without its traces of hope. Recovery, though elusive, is nonetheless attainable for men who are committed and contrite.
When it comes to the recovery process, it is very difficult, because even if a man or a woman is no longer looking at the images online, they still have the images in their head.
The pornography is permanently implanted in your brain. There's no detox. There's no way to get it out of the body. So you're going to start the treatment with the addictive substance already there, still there, always there. It is a treatment that works, but it's slow and they often relapse. And so it's harder to get them into remission than it is to get a cocaine addict into remission. And it's more likely that they will relapse than it is for a cocaine addict.
For someone who is that deeply entrenched in the addiction, they really need something that is going to be intense for them. First of all, the individual therapy, working through that, working through the root causes of their pornography use, the root key core values, all of those things they need to look at. And then they also need the support of a 12-step group such as Sexaholics Anonymous.
The individual treatment involves telling the story of what the pornography has actually done to your life, and that's hard to get to admit really what it's done to your life. But that's part of the treatment. And then starting to reconstruct your beliefs about sexuality, your beliefs about relationships, and start to act in a new and different way. It's a struggle. It's a struggle because the old way is so reinforced and is so rewarding, and the call of the orgasm is so strong that it's a long, involved struggle.
When it comes to becoming addicted to pornography, what is the real root cause? And it really goes back to 4 core beliefs that a person struggles with. The first core belief is, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to be loved. I'm not worthy to be respected. I'm not worthy of anything. That's the first core belief. The second core belief is, if people really knew me, they would reject me. The third core belief is, I can't depend on anybody to meet my needs. And thus I need to find something that I can control that will meet my needs, which can either be pornography, alcohol, drugs, or whatever. And in this situation, then the fourth core belief is, pornography is my greatest need. Now, what fuels these core beliefs? The loneliness, the rejection, poor body image, poor mother image, anger, trying to escape from life, all these things fuel those 4 core beliefs. So when I'm working with someone who is struggling with pornography addiction, one of my main goals is helping them change those 4 core beliefs. And in order to do that, we need to find healing for those wounds.
There are lots of resources. There's individual treatment, there's group treatment, there are peer groups, such as 12-step groups for sex and love addicts, which they can go to. There are accountability coaches, there are accountability software that you can put on your computer if your computer is the problem. There are clean internet service providers who will block the pornography at the provider level. There are spiritual support groups, there are mentors, there are any number of resources, online resources, lots of online programs, as well as weekend programs that men can go to, inpatient programs that men can go to get help. But it starts with first recognizing that you've got a problem, that it's damaging you, and then the desire to make your life better.
Part of my story is that when I came back to the Lord, I was drinking like a fish, smoking like a locomotive, and I was going up to Times Square to buy hardcore pornographic magazines on a regular basis. It took about a year to stop drinking entirely. I haven't had a drink since I was 24 years old. It took about 2.5 years to stop smoking. In law school, I was smoking 2 to 3 packs of cigarettes a day. It would take me 7 years to stop going up to 42nd Street.
Well, at 26, I started to really evaluate my existence as far as in the sexual integrity lines. So then I started to take steps at that point, get rid of my television, get rid of the computer, get rid of anything impure that I knew were triggers for me that could set me on a path to sexual impurity. It took me 5 years to get rid of all those triggers. And then the healing, the true freedom came.
When they get to their abstinence, they can start to engage in truly human behavior and engage in sexuality that elevates them rather than degrades them, that actually takes male sexuality and makes it what it's supposed to be, which is a pleasurable, committed, loving, enhancing, fulfilling kind of activity that on some occasions produces a human being. And so that's what it was supposed to be. And they have that experience and they can see how that compares with the junk food that they've been eating.
I don't know if you're ever truly healed. Is it free? Yes. Free from pornography, free from masturbation? Yes. Do I have to be vigilant every day? Absolutely. Am I completely healed? I don't know if anyone can claim that. Am I free from the daily, weekly, monthly struggle with it? Yeah, and it's only through the grace of God that I am. But I'm a weak moment away from starting it up again, you know? You just gotta be very careful and continue to fortify yourself.
When I treat the sex addicts, at some point in the treatment, I always say to them, do you want your wife to be a prostitute? You want your daughter to be a stripper? You want your sister to perform in porn movies? You want your mother to do any of these things? 100% of them say no, because they know that all of this is damaging. They want somebody else's wife, somebody else's daughter, somebody else's sister, somebody else's mother to do that. But they know that it's damaging. They know that this kind of stuff is not good for both the performer and the viewer, but they really wish it was, and they really hate to give up what pleasures them. So that's a lie, that you can engage in this material and it won't hurt you. It's a lie that the performers are doing it because they love it.
This is what the men will say even today, you know, these are friends of mine. And you can see the loneliness there because they don't have anybody else. Their friends are strippers. Their friends are people who are manipulating them to get their money. And they lull themselves into thinking they're in relationship with a human being, but they're not. He's using them, she's using him.
The men are saying, oh, well, they're doing it because they love it. I treat strippers. The thoughts they have about men when they're stripping are some of the most virulent hate speech I have ever heard. Men are dogs, I hate them, I wouldn't want to date them. And the men in the audience are saying, these women are loving this, they're really grooving on me, they're really aroused by me. No, they're not. No, they're not. The strippers, most of them are either drunk, high, or dissociated when they're stripping, because you can't do that activity and still stay in your body.
The men that go to sexually oriented businesses, in their heart, they're hoping for a fantasy to enter into a relationship. They want sex. They may not think they're going to get it, but in their heart, they're hoping that they'll get it. And they're hoping that that's what's going to come from this. And that's why you see prostitution coming out of sexually oriented business. That's why you see secondary effects of, rape and so forth coming from these places.
It's important to be compassionate to anybody who is caught up in this trap of pornography, whether it's the man who's going into the porn shop and looking at it, or the owner of that porn shop, the owner of the strip club, because they're caught up in it just as bad. They really are. They are caught up in just such a deep darkness that they don't realize it. The owners, they're in it for the money. They're definitely in it for the money, but I would venture even as far to say that a lot of those owners are also addicted themselves. All right. Essentially, it's like the drug addict who becomes a pusher. All right. Why are they pushing the drug? Because it gives them constant supply for themselves. And this is what these owners are doing. A lot of them are addicted themselves, and so we need to be compassionate to them. They need help too. They need the help. They need our help just as much as the man going in to view the pornography.
There is indeed hope, thanks to the many resources that await a pornography addict seeking freedom. It was this hope and the need for support in their own struggles that led Mark Houck and Damian Wargo to found the King's Men, an organization committed not only to promoting chastity and fostering true manhood among its members, but also to fighting pornography wherever they encounter it.
Yeah, I think when Mark and I met was probably in about maybe 2000, 2002, and we really, I think we had a lot of similarities. We're the same age, similar backgrounds. Both of us, we're trying to grow in holiness and strive to live virtuous lives, especially in the area of chastity. So we sort of naturally hit it off.
The King's Men and ultimately the No More Porn Tour concept developed in 2004 when I met Damian Wargo, and we were both working in the pro-life movement. I was working full-time, he was volunteering. And we were both activists going out and fighting abortion. And when we decided to take a deeper look at our masculinity as men and come together on a weekly basis with another man, Tony Luna, to really look at ourselves and how we're growing and not growing in holiness as men, we started to really focus on sexual integrity.
And so at that point, myself, Mark, and Tony met and said, we really should, as men here trying to grow in holiness, start to learn a little bit about each other. So we kind of shared our own personal journeys, especially in the area of chastity. So it was at that point that we decided to start meeting regularly. We were meeting like once a week, attending Mass together, praying together, discussing issues related to masculinity, related to growing in the faith. And we started to see so much fruit in our own lives that we decided that we really needed to open this up to other men.
And then when we were looking at these things, it seemed like a natural progression for us to say, well, if we're going to talk about these things amongst ourselves, then we really need to take this and live it. Take from what we've done and learned as activists in the pro-life fight and take it to the streets and fight pornography. So our first protest was in the spring of 2005. And we went out to a sexually oriented business and we just said, in the spirit, I'm going to make a public statement here and this is going to help me in my growth as a man. I'm going to do this to support my decision that I've made to these other men in these private settings. I'm going to get out there and put my money where my mouth is. And I'm going to get on the streets and I'm going to be a wounded healer and I'm not going to judge and I'm just going to encourage.
Mark is a guy who puts the leather on the shoes, and he's a doer of the work. And I don't remember when I first heard about the King's Men, but I did hear about it. And then I through a mutual friend, Pat Truman, I learned some more about the King's Men, and also through Mark's work with the Maryland Coalition Against Pornography. I think what the King's Men are trying to do is great. It's what citizens should be doing all over the country, which is fighting pornography.
Groups like the King's Men actually do the first and most important step in this process, because the thing that truly allows the pornographers to do what they do is the fact that we sit in silence. That we sit in silence when we know the truth and don't speak up. And once you realize that silence is complicity, you can't sit in silence any longer. So I say to the pornographers, you will never have the comfort of my silence again. And the King's Men live by that as well.
For me as a man, being there, I can heal myself. I can, by helping another man to discover the truth that what they're doing and to be open to something better for their life, I heal myself in that process, because I am taking something that is very painful, very dark, and I'm bringing light to it, and I'm using it for good.
As far as the No More Porn Tour goes, some of the elements that, make it what it is and some of the nuts and bolts is certainly, first and foremost, is getting men there. So recruitment is a big aspect. Certainly, we employ other resources as well. We send out blast emails to all our men, reminders. We have a Facebook group. Our intern has been a big part of that because she has been able to reach out to some of the college students. She's a college student herself, and that has rallied a younger crowd that Mark and I probably wouldn't have reached without her. So that's been a big part of getting men there. And then once people are there, you know, we have different roles for different men to take. I mean, some men will be very prayerful. Other men will be holding signs. We have literature. Mark wrote an excellent piece on pornography, on the dangers of pornography that we hand out, that we ask men to take. We're there in a spirit of charity, though. We are not there in a spirit of condemnation. We're there really to reach out and offer the men going in a better way. For the women who are in the strip clubs, we're there for them as well. We're there to say, you know, if you need help, we can get it for you. For the community, we're there to really try to rally them and say that there are men standing up for what is right. And I remember this one time when we were at a No More Porn stop and a car pulled up and there was a woman in the car and she yelled out to me, "Well, it's about time." And at first that kind of rubbed me the wrong way because I thought it was a negative comment, but as I kind of reflected on it a little more, I realized this may have been the very first time that this woman has seen men, you know, trying to defend women. The support we receive from women when we're doing the No More Porn tour is tremendous. It's not uncommon for when women are going by to be honking their horns, giving us the thumbs up, you know, clapping while driving at the same time. I mean, we see all of this. Stopping to give us water or other things, encouragement, because they get it.
The King's Men began the No More Porn Tour to take their crusade against sexually oriented businesses across Pennsylvania and the surrounding areas. But the stakes of the battle were raised when a strip club was established, rather covertly, in their own backyard.
In December of 2007, the corporation that had rights to the leasing rights to the property presented to the township supervisors that they were going to open a sports bar. Well, when they were putting together all their amenities for their sports bar, they boarded up their windows and they started bringing poles into the facility, and people started asking questions. And then sure enough, when they opened in December, they were a strip club called Coyotes Show Club.
As word kind of got out among the residents of Milford Township that a strip club was going to open in the building that used to be Lacey's Pub, you know, the township and the community was really up in arms. So a meeting was called, you know, to let this be presented to the people of the township. So we knew that we needed to rally these people that were in this township meeting. So we immediately started dialoguing with some key individuals, including the township commissioners. People of the township were pretty much deflated after the meeting because it became much more apparent as time went on that this was going to in fact open as a strip club. And it didn't appear at the time of those meetings that there was anything that the residents could do.
So the township said, okay, we'll give you a license, let's talk about this. Hence the two quasi-judicial licensing hearings. And at these two particular hearings, there was over 200 people in total at both hearings. So the Kingsmen were just part of a collective group of citizens that were saying no, but we were the loudest voice in the group. So in our group meetings, we decided that we're going to need an attorney. And this is prior to the second judicial hearing. And we had already met the former chief of the Child Exploitation and Obscenity Division for the United States Justice Department in the 1980s under Ronald Reagan's administration.
I came up and testified before the Township Council that while the Supreme Court says that you have to allow strip clubs into your community, which I think is a ridiculous pronouncement, but there are many things you can do to require the strip club to conform to your community and not spread what they call harmful secondary effects into your community.
The township supervisors put in place 34 strict conditions. The Kingsmen were able to uncover a law in Pennsylvania, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, called the Bottle Club Law. Coyotes was a BYOB establishment. They did not have a liquor license.
Coyotes did not have a license to serve liquor. so they could allow their customers to bring their own bottle into the club. You give it to the bartender, and when you want a drink, the bartender will pour that for you, and I think there's a fee for pouring.
If you are a bottle club, you cannot have nudity. It's in the books. And so it was the foundation for all the strict conditions, and they were not happy. Once the conditions came forward in April, and there were 34 of them, as I said, they immediately filed an appeal.
Working on behalf of Kingsmen, I can tell you that I looked for every angle that we could find to use against Coyotes. But it took a lot of time, took a lot of legal hours, but these businesses don't go down easy.
This was really just the beginning of the fight, and we realized it because Pat was telling me this is far from over. So what happened after the hearing was really the Kingsmen discovering all that really we needed to do to fight this battle. We decided we got to do a protest then.
The Kingsmen began a campaign of protests and picketing that would last for many months to come. In the course of their battle against Coyotes, they suffered many blows. They weathered extreme cold and countless insults, but through perseverance, through peaceful protests, and by rallying the community, the Kingsmen eventually helped bring about Coyotes' demise.
Mark called me one night and said, "I have really good news. I heard a rumor that tonight is the last night of business for Coyotes." This was a Saturday night. On Monday, I called them myself. I found their number on the internet, and I said, are you open? They said, "No, the township won, we're closed." That was the exact words of the man that answered the phone.
The doors are shut, they're locked, and the poles are being removed from the establishment, the signs are covered, and Coyote Show Club is no longer in existence in Quakertown. After 13 months, all the pressure points, all of the effort, all of the protests, all the prayers, everyone coming together to fight this battle, to defend the common good, to protect women and children in Quakertown, we were finally seeing the fruits of our labor. And it was a great day for the Kingsmen, Damian and myself. We were so thrilled.
If the Kingsmen were not on the scene, Coyotes would still be open today. I truly believe that. We put the pressure on them. We rallied the community. We worked with the township and the commissioners to put the ordinance in place. We brought up Patrick Truman, the expert attorney, in fighting these battles. Without that, they would have been doing anything they wanted.
They were successful, Kingsmen was, in ultimately seeing that the strip club went out of business because they picketed the business, so some people didn't want to show up there knowing that they're going to get their picture taken or that there's going to be a group that they're going to have to pass through. They got the city motivated to turn out at the hearings. Even one board member, after a while being at the hearings, decided that he didn't really want to be a part of a strip club and got to be feeling guilty about having his name associated with it. And I think you can't overlook the fact that the Kingsmen are prayer warriors, and God shed His grace on them.
The Kingsmen will continue their efforts in other towns against other sexually oriented businesses, but they cannot do it alone. The cry for help in the battle against pornography resounds through America, and the need to mobilize against this threat is urgent. The Kingsmen have provided a solid model for effectively carrying out this mission. But men are needed. Men who continue to struggle with pornography, as well as men who have overcome it. Every man who acknowledges the weight of the problem has a responsibility to take action against it, and the time to act is now.
It's going to take a man who has the courage, who has the ability to initiate and to begin to pursue a cause. And he's going to have to be patient, waiting to see who will rally behind him. But those men are out there, and I invite all the men that have that courage, where they can get out there and begin to champion a cause. And then watch what happens. What's going to happen is other men will get under your leadership, and those men need to be galvanized into that battle. And that's why the Kingsmen, this isn't just a local problem or a local activism. We're taking it to the nation. And we want everyone to see what we're doing, and we want to give them the permission to do what we're doing, and we'll help them in the process.
It's absolutely vital that we have groups of men who stand up and say, real men don't use porn, and show themselves to the society willing to speak out, willing to take action in the face of this tidal wave of toxicity that's coming at them. So this is the bravest, the best, and the way that we have to start, with those men who have strapped themselves to the front of the warhead alone to be out there and do this kind of work.
There should be a Kingsman in every community who will stand up. And sometimes it's embarrassing, sometimes it's difficult to stand there and say, I'm against pornography. But what I find is that women admire you for doing that, for standing up, for being a leader. Your children will admire that. My kids admire me knowing that this is what I do for a living. So men have to do something about it.
Part of the need is to educate people, to make them aware that there are harms involved here, and that it was not the purpose of the First Amendment to protect everything, that there are laws that still can be enforced, at least against the hardcore pornography, or keeping these porno garbage dumps out in the garbage pit where they belong. But the other side of it is somebody's got to put some shoe leather to the ideas, you know, to go out and sit down with a local prosecutor and say, why aren't you enforcing these laws against this type of business? Or picketing an adult establishment with the hopes of maybe scaring away some of the customers that'd be embarrassed to walk in. Or deciding that you're going to be a good steward with your resources and shop at stores that don't sell pornography whenever possible.
Can the Coyotes story be repeated in other places in the country? Absolutely. Absolutely, the time is ripe. There are strip clubs all around the country that if men in those areas would stand up and fight against them, the potential there for them to shut down exists. I have no doubt in my mind what a few men rallying other men together can do. There's no reason why we should be driving by these places day after day, week after week, and saying to ourselves, I hate that that adult bookstore is there. I hate that that strip club's in our community. Well, do something about it. We have the ability in this country to stand up for what is right, so why not come together in a committed effort, make a plan, devise a strategy, and just start doing something.
Now it's your turn. Get trained and equipped to fight pornography in your community and in your own life. Contact the Kingsmen at www.thekingsmen.org. Get your own copy of this documentary and share it with others by visiting whatsthatpurplebuilding.com.